Well, here we are again. LaRuelist Cafe. I am so excited today because, as you know, we have started this new weekly program for Thursdays, only Thursdays, and it's called This Is My Story. Many of you who have known me throughout my lifetime, at least over the last 40 or 50 years, you know that I have an amazing story to tell. Some of it is a story of excitement, some of it is a story of hope, some of it is pain, and some of it is just a story, just the story. So, what I have been looking for, and I have found an amazing lineup of guests who will be coming on every Thursday to talk about his or her story. I have found some amazing guests who are, some folks are celebrating some amazing things in their lives. Some people are struggling with pain, the loss of loved ones. Some people are fighting for their lives. Today, we have a man coming on. He is really an epitome of all of it. This guest who is coming on here today, he is a man who every day he gets out of bed, every day he's fighting for his life. I have known this particular guest who's going to be coming on in a few minutes. I have known him for at least 2 decades. I have heard his story of being a survivor of a kidney transplant. And I've thought, oh my goodness, he's living on someone else's kidney, that gift of life. But then I heard a story that not long ago, he found out he had cancer. And I couldn't believe it, and I said, is he going to make it? And then he got COVID. And then I heard the story about his wife had become very ill and they didn't think she was going to make it. And then I watched on social media the pain, the heartbreak that he was feeling as her days began to come to an end. And then he began to talk about what that was feeling like. And then the next thing I know, I was looking at his Facebook page and he started telling us about his journey as he put up this machine and talked about how without him, that machine had no life. And without that machine, he had no hope. This is a man who is a former mayor. He's a part of the well, he'll tell you all the things that he's a part of. I just love him. And there are days I'm on Facebook and I see him. There are days I'm crying. There are days I'm laughing. He rides a motorcycle. You could tell he goes to the gym. He looks good. He is always dressed as clean as the board of health, as they say. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on my good friend, a hero who fights every day. Every day he fights for his life. And every day he shows us that there's something to get up in the morning and smile about. See Andre Daniels.
Well, good afternoon.
Andre, how are you?
I'm well, Mom. How are you?
I'm good, man. You're looking good. I saw you
Thank
a few
you.
minutes ago from head to toe. You got that green going on, and when I heard you were coming on the show today, I said I got to go to my barber because my hair was all over the place. I said I can't be on the show with Andre because I know he's going to be all trimmed up, and you did not
Well,
disappoint.
we thank you so much. I knew I was coming home to see you, so I had to be fit and in shape and in order. It's only right. Or Sam
Well,
would get
let's
on me.
or Sam will get on you, right? And most of my viewers know about Sam.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Andre, tell me a little bit about your life, because man, I know you fight every day to live. You fight every day to live. And I look at the way you're handling this, and we don't know because, we're all just walking each other home, right? That's what
Right.
we're doing.
That's
But
right.
tell us a little bit about your story. I want to know about the first when you found out that you needed a kidney transplant. And do you
Sure.
know who actually gave you this kidney?
Sure. So we would have to go back to circa 1996, 1998, when I noticed that when I would go to void, something just wasn't right. I didn't know what the something was. And that's why they call kidney disease or end stage renal disease the silent killer, because there's really no warnings. There's no predisposition of how your body may or may not be. But one thing that I knew that early on in circa 1996, 1997, was that my voiding or, output should not be frothy as if it was a hit of beer. And I became concerned about that. I made an appointment at with my doctor, who made an appointment with a renal doctor. And one of the things they were able to do right there in the office, my initial doctor, was do a chemistry test. And he said I had urine or protein, if you will, leaking in my urine, actual blood, if you will. Now, it was microscopic, so you couldn't necessarily see it. Further tests, a biopsy, would later reveal that I had FSGS, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. And the layman's explanation for that is that my kidney's ability to filter out toxins was decreasing and would eventually go away, where some sort of other medical treatment would be needed to sustain life. Presently, and I'll clear up the misnomer, a transplant is not a cure. A transplant is only another form of treatment, temporary at that, because a transplant could in fact fail at any given time. There are really three modalities, four, but the fourth one is similar to one of the other three. There's hemodialysis in center, there's home hemodialysis, and there's another form of dialysis that at this very moment begins with a P. That form of dialysis has just escaped me. I actually went back on that one back in 21, where a catheter actually comes out of your stomach and there's no exchange of blood. There's just an exchange of fluid put into your peritoneum and your stomach. And after it dwells, if you will, for about 2 hours, you get hooked up to the machine, and the machine extracts that fluid. And when it does, it pulls toxins that allows you to survive, quite frankly, and any excess weight. It's really remarkable. There are yellow bags, there are green bags, and there are red bags. And the green bag is the normal, like I've only gained maybe 2 pounds between my last treatment. The yellow bag is a little bit less, and then the red bag is I was a bad boy and I gained a lot of weight between treatments, and it needs to pull off a little bit more weight. The science is remarkable. It's come a long way from the 50s and the 60s, where it was hold on, stand fast, let's walk you home real slowly until you transition. And there was even some who talked about having those little bugs on you that suck the blood, and it would actually had some medicinal value, but not really. The person who created the dialysis machine was truly a person that was hit at a time, godlike, small g, only in that this machine or the ability to dialyze is what gives us continued life. And really, it's all about an outlook. One of the things that a friend of mine had shared with me was, I'm here to tell a story. Life isn't always great every day with this thing or this infirmary. Um, I realized that when whatever infirmary you have, whether it be cancer, whether it be heart disease, strokes, or in my case, end-stage renal disease, it's a life filled with pivoting and adjusting, heavy on adjusting. And, at the end of all of that, I'm still here to tell a story. I think COVID made us realize one thing, that when we used to hear that tomorrow's not promised to us, we saw in real life, real quick, like never before. I remember grandparents and the elders saying that, when you get older, life comes and goes real fast. Well, some of us who aren't that old has seen life coming real fast and quick, and folks that you see a couple days ago and you hear about them passing. So it's important that we wake up every day with an abundance of hope, with a good feeling on our heart, thanking the Lord that I'm able to touch the floor and my eyes is able to focus on something. And what can I do to make the day more meaningful? What can I do today um, to give me strength? I've never asked the Lord why me, or had any real issues, just knowing that my job is to make sure that I do dialysis so I can be here for another day.
Beautiful. So tell me, Andre, in this walk that you've had, because I know that, and we'll get to that in a second, that your kidneys that you mentioned the C word, cadaver. I always I cringe when I hear that, but that's exactly what it is. You have a cadaver kidney, and we know that that kidney is not functioning well. So
Correct.
during, I guess it was COVID time, you got COVID, and tell us, what was the impact of your getting COVID and your cadaver kidney?
Well, when COVID came about, I was at 18 years post transplant, cadaver kidney. It was a 19-year-old gentleman from the DMV, Maryland area who was in a motor vehicle accident. I was able to get some information on Shane, and we can talk about that a little bit later because Shane has given me so much to live life for on purpose. We've established a scholarship that I will be giving out, and we'll be giving it out on a larger level this year as well. But circa 20 January, it was around January of 2020. It was right around the time I remember that the presidency was exchanging, and January 6th and all of that would happen down in Washington, D.C. I caught COVID. And when I caught COVID, I really didn't think much of it because I think that was kind of like on the tail end. And, I was a little surprised that I kind of I was able to evade it, but it finally caught me. And when it caught me, I remember having to go to the VA. And back during those times, you could only go by yourself because it didn't matter who you came with, they couldn't get into the hospital. I was immediately, well, not immediately, but almost very soon diagnosed with COVID with double pneumonia on my lungs. I knew at that moment that I had to make it back home because we heard the plethora of stories of how veterans and folks was going into the hospital never to return. So while in the emergency room, I told them to treat me with whatever I need to be treated with for the pneumonia, and that I was in fact going home. Of course, they advised against it and tried to keep me at the hospital, but I told them that I would sign whatever consent and I was going to go home, that whatever would happen, but my belief was that the Lord would work this thing out. Lo and behold, I
And
went home.
obviously, you were right.
I was right. I was right. And I stick by that I was really happy that going home saved my life. And as I am a believer, I believe that. And later on, we would find out that because I was still getting regularly tested, even though I was 18 years out from my transplant, I was regularly getting tested. And we noticed that my creatinine load or creatinine level began to rise. And what was not known at that time, but now known, is that many people like me who has suffered end-stage renal disease and in fact had either a live living organ donor or a cadaveric donor, they were experiencing some medical kidney decline. And sure enough, that's what essentially killed the kidney. Now, I still have My transplanted kidney, which is probably putting off 5 to 10%, surely not enough to sustain life. And my native kidneys, we had talked about that in 22, I would in fact, because even before that, I was being watched with my left native kidney because it had some cyst, and my right kidney had hemorrhagic cyst. They suspected it might be cancer, but they weren't really metastasizing or growing or anything like that. We would later on find out that it was beginning to grow, and as you can imagine, I wanted to have surgery right away. And
Cancer in your kidney.
yes, my left
Wow.
kidney. Stage one, fortunately, stage one. And, we scheduled the nephrologist and the urologist. They scheduled one, and I would have to have what was known as a radical double nephrectomy, where both native kidneys would actually come out. I really thought that would be like, I would get that done on the Thursday, and I would be, hey, back out at it on a Saturday. I literally was in uh, intensive care for 2 weeks.
Wow.
There were some nights at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, Lord, just take me. The
Were
pain
you
was,
ever intubated? Were you ever?
I, I was at the beginning. I was at the
Wow.
beginning.
And you
Yeah,
were able to come off of that machine.
I was able to come off. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So
So you have survived cancer. You are now cancer free,
I am cancer free. Every 6 months I get checked,
right?
and the hope was that nothing would metastasize off of the kidney, and it hasn't as of yet. Well, knock on some wood around here, that it won't ever. But so far, so good. They felt as though that they caught it in a timely manner, that it was contained within the nodules or in the cyst on the kidney. And that's why they took both of them, because they didn't want to give the right one a chance, because they already knew that one was hemorrhaging and I was actually losing blood. Um, yeah.
So I know your daughter is watching or will be watching. Tell us about your wife. My heart just bled for you all as you went through her treatment and her transition. And as you know, around the same time, I was going through it with my partner, Maria, who was also making a transition. And one of the things that you told me that I'll never forget is how much she taught you about life through her dying.
Man.
Let's spend a couple minutes on that.
Yeah. So Tina was diagnosed before COVID as having stage 3 cancer. We were separated at the time, but nevertheless, when she told me, I said, "We're in this fight together. I got you, and things would be well. Things would be fine." Glasses always half full, so we would, in fact, go through all of the necessary tests, and we settled on a cancer center. In not Valley Forge, Northeast Pennsylvania, and Northeast Philadelphia. And we would go through that process. And she was a trooper. She was a real warrior in the process. And I remember Tina told me one day, she said, going through this thing, I have so much to live for. And, she shared how she was afraid of the process, and that in some ways that it could be lonely. No matter how full the room was, it could be lonely. I remember on her birthday, it was October the 6th, 7th, she would start chemo therapy. And that particular day that she started, she went in there with a crown on her head. The entire family, we have 5 children, 5 girls. Every last one of us was there. And we went in there, and I could tell that the weight of the day was heavy on her. She happened to be chosen by a group, and they brought over this real huge big basket. and within it was an iPad, a pink iPad, and it was one of those like Susan G. Komen type groups. And she was the recipient of that. Well, it was a great day. Um, those who, and I'm not going to make it seem like chemotherapy is like something that anybody can take or handle. It became hard on Tina. We found her a couple times passed out, and you would get chemo on Friday, and by Sunday your white blood cells would be so that your body is so depleted and devastated, and almost all of your white blood cells are gone, and you have to receive these injections to have to begin to create some white blood cells so that 2 weeks later you would go through the process again. Well, after about a year of that and maybe a couple surgeries, and the doctor saying that, with continued chemo, you might live 6 months longer, and or you can really end it now, the chemo. Tina made a hard decision. She said, these next birthdays, these next Christmases, these next Thanksgivings and holidays would be the absolute best.
Take your time.
She lived up to that statement. Those Thanksgivings, that last Thanksgiving, that last Christmas, those last birthdays, with that last Mother Day, one of my youngest daughter, her boss, arranged for us to have dinner at this really upscale restaurant, and the family was there. We had to cut the dinner short because the pain just became too great and she had to go home. But I remember before, you know, she was no longer really able to be there, before she would take her last breath. And one of those moments that she was talking to me, she said, "This has taught me a lot about living and just how much I took living for granted." And it struck me that as she was fading and transitioning, she showed all of us so much about the necessity of life, how robust you really could make it. That if I had but one more thing to do, it was to make and give you all memories and try to make you all as happy. Well, for me, I wasn't seeing the physical decline because I was always thinking that tomorrow would just be a better day. We could just get you to tomorrow. Tomorrow would be a better day. And I remember I was supposed to start dialysis training for peritoneal. That's the form for peritoneal dialysis. And my daughter, Andrea, who's on here, who was really a trooper, actually took time away from her job, was really a trooper. I would get that call. I think I was there for 2 hours, and mommy took her last breath. And yeah, life,
Amazing.
life kind of like hit me real hard and impactful because for me, men, we think that we can fix things, and sometimes we don't listen to listen. Sometimes listen to hear and then react, and how can I fix it? And I always wanted to fix it, and I was like, the prayer was, Lord, I already had one foot.
Right.
You got me live too.
Mm.
I already
I
had
hear you. Because you inspire me every day. That's why you're here.
I already had one foot in the grave. Lord, take me.
Yes.
Let these girls have their mom. And that was always the constant. Like,
But God said no. They still got their dad.
yeah,
And you've been right there.
I have.
And I want you to know you got folks looking right now, Andre, who are sending healing prayers your way, emojis. People are feeling you. And and I know, like, even today, what folks don't understand, in this moment, you are racing against time yourself.
I am.
Yes.
But so there's an abundance. And when we're talking about pivoting and adjusting, so my life has become very purposeful. How do you take this infirmary? And, Tina's always there. She's that angel on the right shoulder. Shane is the angel on the left shoulder because I started my work, Shane's Promise, with the singular promise that every day would be a life full of living. bouts. I mean, being elected to the West Hampton Township Council, becoming two-time a mayor in West Hampton Township. That was all. It never was about the politics. It was always about the advancement of being a public servant, doing the work of the people in the community. Being a national PTA, Parents and Teachers Association board member, elected to that board 2 terms. Being on the BCAP board, I am a Prince Hall Mason. This year, I served as the illustrious potentate of Khufu Temple number 120 out of the Oasis of Trenton right here.
And
And
you got some gorgeous outfits that you wear. Every time I see all the headdress and all, I'm like, whoa, look at this dude.
thank you. Thank you. That's the
Beautiful.
regalia. That's the regalia. And,
Yes,
it's important because though all of that work is truly a portal to be able to extend the necessary charity, to be able to reach out to some people who otherwise wouldn't get the low level look. We understand that there are a lot of groups out there, and unless your story is front and center, will they hear about me? Will they understand what my cause and what my call is? And sometimes they're missed. I like to think that, long before where those fans at and boots on the ground, or my
right?
boots were already on the ground,
Yes,
steadfast in the work in the community, and where they tell us not to go, that's where I'm usually going, because that's where the people are really hurting that don't necessarily get the ear that they need to help advance their agenda. So, all of it's really concentric work. The fact that I'm on your show today is by no real surprise. Knowing your story and knowing how much of a warrior you are, I gain energy and strength from you and your story and your work. Your son and daughter-in-law, I consider them like brothers and sisters, because we've just been in the vineyard working all of these years, getting the job done.
well, we're going to close out now. I pray for you, Andre, every day.
Thank you.
I mean, I know that process that you now get to administer the dialysis at home.
I
I
do.
didn't know there was such a thing. When you told me the process, I mean, you're literally racing against the clock with these toxins, keeping it at a low level in your body. I watch you on that motorcycle, sometimes in the rain, doing your thing. I mean, you're out there on the road. You give me hope.
Thank you.
You
Thank you.
give me hope.
If I could, do we have just a second that I can kind of not
You
explain the
got you.
process?
I want you to explain it.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I am on home hemodialysis, and it would take some 4 to 6 weeks to get trained. Training with a caregiver, a person whom I have the greatest amount of respect and love for, because not everybody could be your caregiver or your training partner. And it's vital and it's important. You have to go through this training to actually become certified by the state. So while I'm not a trained phlebotomist, I have a near certification of being a phlebotomist, because I have to cannulate myself, or the training partner has to cannulate you each and every day. I get cannulated with two 14-gauge needles, needles that put a pretty big hole in my arm. And then the rest is the technical process of setting the machine up, because you're 100% assignable to your healthcare. And the biggest thing is making sure that there's no air within the system at all, and making sure that there are no bubbles, no air, because an air bubble is something that could kill me. My treatment is for 2.5 hours. I do it 5 days a week. So home hemodialysis, you're actually doing it more than in center, which you do it 3 times a week at 3.5 hours. However, that machine runs at a higher rate, and there are dialysis patients who talk about the washing out, or feeling tired, feeling like you need to go home and eat something and lie down. Home hemodialysis is a little softer process, if you will. It's a softer spin cycle, and at a slower rate, but high enough to make sure that it takes off the excess fluid and the toxins. It's a remarkable machine. The beauty about home hemodialysis is it gives you back a little bit of quality of life. It gives you back a little bit of your freedom and your ability to control, at least going forward. So I live a purpose-driven life, fulfilled, as you said, with the regalia and the hat. This year, as the president, if you will, or the illustrious potentate at Kufa Temple, almost every weekend I'm somewhere in the Northeast Quarter, traveling around the country, doing things. Two things, two last things I want to re-mention is uh, I'm working with the University of Pennsylvania, Drexel University, and Department of Veterans Affairs out of Philly, looking and studying long-term longitudinal study, and I've been put on a board to look at the impact and how we can make dialysis, end-stage renal, and this whole area much better from a patient perspective. So I'm happy about that. In July, I will be going down to Capitol Hill with some other warriors like myself, and we will be testifying before Congress with dialysis patient citizens. And I will be one of the individuals actually testifying on Capitol Hill of the impact of dialysis. And even in the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, I think already has it. New Jersey needs to have some caregiver protections because, one of the things to prevent people on home hemodialysis is having a great caregiver. Well, who are you going to get that can commit to 6 to 8 weeks and you have a job that you have to still pay your bills and
Right.
take care of yourself? So, one of the things I'm going to look to advocate on behalf of is a caregiver bill of rights, that there has to be something out there where that can be worked out between the government and, in fact, the dialysis centers. DaVita Dialysis is one of the largest, as well as Fresenius. There are more DaVita dialysis centers in the United States of America at this time than there are Burger King restaurants.
Wow.
When I found that out, that was really enlightening, and it really opened my eyes. And both dialysis companies are traded on the New York Stock Exchange, so it's a big business. Thankfully, it's a big business that exists,
Yeah.
is extending life, and yeah, I don't think of myself much as it. When I saw that the pronouncement on the screen, cancer survivor, I was like, wow, I guess I am. I am a cancer survivor.
Yes, you are. And
Uh,
you're a survivor of a lot of things. I mean, and no secret to you, Cordelia, who we call DD
that's
Stanton,
right.
she's already said, and you've heard her say it many times, you're my hero and an
She's mine.
inspiration to many dealing with this. And she said, keep pressing on, my dear brother.
Amen. And we're on a patient advocacy group. Her and I are on that right now, dispensing whatever knowledge, time, talent, and treasury that we can to that. So, it's not closed order. It's many of us, and I'm finding out more and more every day that more and more people, particularly Black and Brown, African Americans, and Latinos are suffering from end-stage renal disease, and we have to come up with a cure. We have to come up with a cure now to both of those dreaded diseases, end-stage renal disease and also cancer.
So the last thing I want to ask you on this is you've mentioned it many times, end stage. End stage means end.
Well,
Are
right.
you
So
waiting for another kidney?
I am. So end-stage renal disease just means stage 5 kidney disease, that if you're stage 5, you're actually on dialysis. I am right now listed at 3 different centers. I am listed at Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia, where I received my first kidney transplant back in 2002. I am listed at the VA in Pittsburgh, which is one of the foremost VA hospitals, and probably the foremost VA hospital is the Hines Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. I went out there about a year ago and I got registered out there. They really have a great program out there. More kidneys are coming on the market, so more people are being able to be transplanted because of the advent of a cure for hepatitis C. A lot of those kidneys prior to 2, 3 years ago weren't being used. With the advent of the cure of hepatitis C, you're able to take otherwise a sick kidney by way of hepatitis C. You're transplanted, you're treated for the hepatitis C for 6 months, and then you will receive your regular continue your regular immunosuppressant drug therapy. So I am listed. I've had some, and there's some angels probably on this call right now who said that they wanted to give me a transplant. I've had 2 daughters ask me that we want to be tested. I feel as though every day that I have the strength, the energy, and the breath in my body to carry on, I have not found the way to accept one of those kidneys, knowing that all we will ever really need, God gave us 2. He gave us a spare, one that we need and a spare. So yeah, it's like, I'm not crazy. Yeah, I would love to be back off, because you will see me running even more with the kidney transplant, not knowing how long I would have it. I'm so happy that many of my brothers and sisters who I suffer with may be on this call, but who have recently received kidney transplant. And I'm reminded that when the Lord is in the neighborhood, you just never know when your blessing's going to come.
Exactly.
So I'm hopeful. I get on that machine. I take pride because it's my job, just like it was back in 1998 when I got on. I realized that 3 days a week, 3.5 hours is really not that bad of a job once you get past the stick.
Right.
So once I'm past the stick, I'm okay. I find something purposeful to do while I'm on. If I'm not watching a sports channel or something like that, I'm on the iPad. So yeah, I really thank you for the forum to get it out there.
Well, I thank you. And I want
Yeah,
you to know, Andre, already just on my page alone, almost 200 people have already watched you in these few minutes we've been on just my page. And right now we are live streaming on 3 different platforms of my page. We're live streaming on my personal page, on LaRuelist Cafe, on Capital, the Black Caucus on my page. We're also live streaming right now on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And as I have put here, you can watch all of the live shows on LaRuelistCafe.com. Those shows stay on forever. That is my website. I can't tell you how excited I was about your coming on to the show today and telling your story. I'm going to claim the victory that we are still going to be talking about C. Andre Daniels in 2026, in 2027. We're claiming it. We're
amen.
claiming it. And we know that you continue to be in the fight of your life, but every day, you know what? There's a poem that I have said during many of the women's programs. They've asked me to come in, and it's all "Come Celebrate with Me." And the last line says, "Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me
Yeah,
and it failed."
amen. I'm here to tell the story.
You're here to tell the story. Thank you so much, C. Andre Daniels.
And I want to
And here
thank
we
you.
are on
Amen.
LaRuelist Cafe. Absolutely. Thank you. And so, my friends, this is the end of this Thursday's This Is Your Story. And you know what? Inbox me on Facebook or wherever you're watching this right now. Send me a message. If you think that you have a story of inspiration, a story of overcoming, a story of information, something, the word you want to get out. We're not doing politics on Thursday. We're not doing sad stories on Thursday. We're doing hope on LaRuelist Cafe on Thursdays. Inbox me, reach out to me. I want you to come on LaRuelist Cafe on Thursdays. This is my story. We want to know about your story too. Thank you for joining us. Make it a good day.
Okay.
You did that. That was so amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you.
Wow.